This morning, Tan Sri spoke about the Convention on Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which is a very old UN convention. And a UN convention means a human rights document that many governments ratify, which means they say, we agree, we support, and we apply that in our country. And this is what the convention says about the definition of racial discrimination, because we've been talking about this the whole time. Distinction, exclusion, restriction, preference based on race, color, descent, national, ethnic origin, which has the purpose or effect of nullifying or impairing the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise on an equal footing of human rights, fundamental freedoms in all spheres of life. So, this is what, when we speak about the word racial discrimination, is about all the stories that we've been hearing in our example. I just thought I'd put this here so that we are guided by whenever we use the word racial discrimination. I'm going to go back to a long time ago in 2001, when there was a big conference called the World Conference Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and all other forms of intolerance. It was a big conference. I think a few Malaysians were there. I can't really remember who were there, but I think 3 of us were there. 7,000 NGOs met, because when the governments meet, the NGOs meet on the other side, you know, as a parallel event. So it took a lot of energy. Malaysian government was there in a big delegation, working hard to come up with what is called a 255-page Durban Declaration and Plan of Action. So all governments in the world met and said that we want to fight racism. And this is not the first World Conference, the third. You know, but it's the first World Conference that had a very global agenda. Previously, it was about apartheid, because South Africa was not liberated yet. So the issues were caste discrimination, the Palestinian struggle for freedom, the reparation issue of former slave trade, migrant workers issue, indigenous, minority, the whole list was there. So this was sort of the people we met, you know, people who were protesting discrimination. So this was a group called Rabbis for Human Rights. This was the caste-based group fighting caste discrimination from India. They worked very hard to try to get an inclusion of their issue. There were other groups from the US having forums. So this, just to give you a sense that this has been on the global agenda for a long, long time, and it continues to be on the global agenda. 10 years later, which is in 2009, Malaysian NGOs met together, and we had a discussion. I think we will distribute our document to reflect on how has the progress been, because it's easy to organize a big conference, you know, even like today. Much more easier than, but more difficult to see how to track success or progress of that 225-page document, which is what governments are tasked to do. And I like what Tan Sri said, that human rights is the task of the government. Any government of the day, doesn't matter whichever side gets into power. When you say you want to be government, you have some tasks and some responsibility and obligations to fulfill. So this was our reflection after 10 years of that Durban conference. Malaysian NGOs came up and prepared a document to participate in the Durban review process that happened in Geneva in 2009. And after that big global conference, Malaysia still asks this very basic question. These are our serious issues. These are our hardcore issues in Malaysia. Institutional race-based discrimination. I think Dr. Dennison spoke about it. Our racism is not about just attitude. Attitude you can try to work to change, but sometimes it's so embedded in cultural systems, in a religious system, even in public institution, that it's institutionalized. The use of media to perpetuate racism, that's happening now. You see Utusan getting away with its kind of rhetoric, you know, projection of some of the issues. Racial profiling in law enforcement. The NGOs reflected and said that if you look at criminals in some of the police stations and who gets picked up, who gets caught, the number, then the question mark asks, is there a certain ethnic group that always gets projected at criminals? You remember the play just now? The 3 of them, they cover the face, so they say, you are Indian, means you are, you know, either drunk or a criminal or something dangerous. So That's still happening, or the question mark, is it happening or has it decreased? Race-based politics, this you and I know is our bad heritage that we continue from the days of independence. The politics, the national politics of Malaysia was formed on the base of race. So many countries in the world move away from this kind of branding, but Malaysia still keeps the branding of Indian party, Chinese party, Malay party, or Iban party. So very ethnic based and race based. Affirmative action, I think the experts on 153 spoke about earlier. It's an ethno-sized constitution. So even the affirmative action, which is supposed to help people in need for a specific target group, is race-based. Just one addition on the word affirmative action, just to take on from Edmund and Dr. Dennison. Actually, in human rights, affirmative action or positive discrimination, like 153, is actually not wrong. It is allowed and is actually encouraged in the human rights sphere, because in the context of equality, you need to support and push groups that are left behind. You cannot say, oh, we are a free, happy world, let's all go, and there'll still be a big group behind. You can't just open the doors and say, let's go. The persons who are closest to the door will get to the lift. You and I who are struggling on the stage will take a long time to get to the lift. So it is a human rights concept to have positive discrimination. But there are also safeguards in any positive discrimination policy. It has to be time-bound, very specific, and that's what the new economic policy was. It was time-bound, but it has been extended, and that's what we need to challenge. And it's very specific, targeted, objective. And number the third point is that it in itself should not promote discrimination. So you cannot have an affirmative action policy to fight racism that actually promotes racism. It's counterproductive, and that's a way to check how we have done on our work on positive discrimination. So the other issues are migrants and refugees. In Malaysia, you know how you and I sometimes think about the migrant. You go to a house, if there is a break-in, it must be the Indonesian workers working in the construction. Probably they were working, you know, but straight away some migrant worker did it, you know. We are all good people, only migrant workers steal in Malaysia. So where did this idea come about? Indigenous people, this is a big issue in Malaysia. I think you may have picked up some of the issues of the Orang Asli, the Orang Asal, fighting for land. They seem to be marginalized more, their numbers are small, they don't seem to have the power to fight off the kind of development that you and I are promoting, and that is causing discrimination. And the final point is, we also mentioned the entrenched discrimination against lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and queer community. And this is happening also quite a lot. For the longest time, we thought it did not happen because no one is speaking about it. Now it's coming up more and more. It's been there for a long time. So another form of what you call intersectionality of discrimination. I'm putting this to say that 10 years after a world conference, we are reflecting in Malaysia. We are reflecting about Malaysia 53 years after independence, 54 years after independence, and yet we have a whole list. We need to move forward. We need to find ways to unpack the history that keeps us where we are. Malaysia has two sides. I want to say that we have the beautiful side. We have the side that is, I mean, this is a very common picture, right? It's seen on all the posters, tourism. But it's true, this is it. We've got the beauty, we've got the cultural mix, we've got a diversity that we celebrate. But we always have two sides to the coin. Now, while we have a group, I think the majority are appreciative of this, there's always smaller groups that try to change this, you know. So I'm going to give you two pictures for a few scenes via photo. So we have a beautiful Malaysia, but we also have a not so beautiful Malaysia when groups are pushing and fighting for very race-based ideology. So then they go and they pronounce the country is only for one race, only for the Malays. But I believe this is a small group. Only difference is they speak louder and we have kept quiet. That's the difference, I think. That's why we need to come and reclaim that space as Malaysian. So small groups speak loud, we feel, oh no, we are frightened. First picture. Second picture, we have a lot of examples of Malaysians doing common things. I think this today evening, when we launch the photography exhibition, you'll see a lot of positive, powerful examples. When you go to your neighborhood, your jiran, everybody is helping out. There's a wedding, there's a baby's birth. Neighbors are all going around, and that's common life for many of us, and that's good. It's happening. But yet, we also remember terrible incidences like this. When a small group, let me remind you, it's a very small group of people who did this protest in Shah Alam. It's not majority. I don't think anyone in this crowd here subscribes to that. But yet, we have these two Malaysias that we need to denounce and stop. This picture, you can Google and get it all over the internet. Third point, we have one Malaysia that is promoted. We want to a nation that is together. Yet, we have enough incidents coming out in the paper, in the internet, about leaders teaching indirectly racism, promoting concepts and ideas that one race is better than the other. So you have two types of messages coming, and sometimes people are looking which is the clear message, you know. So sometimes the Prime Minister says one thing in the first instance, everybody claps. Then the next time they interview the Deputy Prime Minister, something else. And it goes across the board for all politicians, all political parties. So two types of education happening. You have policy, and on the ground in schools, there's been enough incidents of headmistress, headmasters saying things that are so racist, yet you have the One Malaysia logo stuck on the school gates, you know. So we have the two Malaysia that we need to handle. We are very proud of our identity. I think this is what Dr. Dennison spoke. You know, you need to be confident of who you are. So we are all many, you know, Samai, Chinese. I didn't put everything here. So there's I don't know how many hundreds of the list. But this is who we are. Our histories are different, you know. If we trace back our generations, it could be in this land, it could be in the Indonesian islands, it could be in India, China. And sometimes the starting point becomes the ending point, and that's where Malaysia is a bit stuck. The question of, can we see ourselves as Malaysians? Or this becomes the main identity. And this was a debate in Parliament, I think. Are you Malaysian first or Indian first? Are you Malaysian first or Malay first? Are you Malaysian first or China? So we had this debate, and different ministers publicly stated their position, and some, we were shocked what some ministers said, and we were very happy that some ministers took the stand, we are Malaysians first. This is a very common borang, right? Many of us are from the government departments here, and many of the borangs will ask you to tick this, right? Bangsa, Melayu, India, China, line, and there's a big issue about the line also from our friends, you know, why are they line? But there is no bangsa called Malaysia. So there's no box that we can tick called Malaysia, and I think there is now a move. I mean, maybe we can hear from the friends from the ministries. I think there is a move because they've got the feedback that many of these categories are not necessary. What difference does it make for you to buy a car, whether you're Melayu, India, China, line or orang asli or what? So why in our minds it's preset as this? I want to give you an example. When the car I was riding, somebody knocked at the back of my car, very small, but we had to go to the police station to make a police report. So two cars went to the police station. So in Sri Petaling, very nice policeman, and actually the policemen who take police report, the sergeants are actually very friendly all the time. It's all the other police that who do the interrogation are the ones we hear all the terrible stories about. So he was very friendly, very nice, and chatting and taking reports. Yeah, this small problem, no problem. Then there was another young boy sitting there very frightened, maybe 18, 19 with his mother. So I asked the policeman what happened to him. He said, this boy. He knocked a Malay boy in Kajang, and he got scared. He didn't stop to check. He drove straight to his mother's house and came to the police station. Then he says that, you know, that's why we need to, he shouldn't do this because that's Malay and this is Indian. And then he said, no, in a lot of the accidents, we always check the accident is between which ethnic group, you know. So in my mind, I said, first of all, it's a vehicle accident. Any of us can now, I can knock into you in the stairs and fall. Not because of who your ethnic group that the accident happens. It's an accident. But in the mindset of our civil service and us, you and I, always the last accident siapa ya? Melayu ke, Cina ke? Something in our mind has framed, you know, our software is a little bit old, needs update or needs a total new software that needs to be updated. And this is the kind of thinking that is in all sections of society. Another picture. We are proud Malaysians. We welcome to our country visitors and guests, right? And they come, they're very impressed because through Malaysia, truly Asia, rakyat berbilang bangsa, bersatu padu. So all the pictures of tourism, racism is all of us together. So they, wow, this is the model. This is the model. Then the tourist walks a bit further and then he looks at the different parties fighting for their ethnic group. So he says, so tourists now confused, hey, I thought you said we Malaysia, truly Asia, then suddenly ada kita bela China, India, Melayu, Iban, you know, the whole works go. So what happened to that being Malaysian suddenly changes after you come back from the airport. Once you leave the airport and go to another country, you introduce yourself as I'm Gerald from Malaysia. When you come back, you say, I'm Gerald, my family is Indian. So where did these ideas come? So I think this is just some pictures to say that the two sides, Malaysia, is going hand in hand. I'm thinking more and more, it's lessening now. It is decreasing. But we still need to recognize that the small groups that are speaking against this trend of a one nation, we need to expose them. And this is the, so where do we stand? I think this is what has been happening in the last few years, and I hopefully the young people, Edmund said there's some young person who's going to speak tomorrow who'll give us all the answers to the nation, so I'm looking forward to him. But I think we need a new imagination for the nation, and this is where Malaysia is now. There's a whole political movement, upheaval, they call it instability, I call it a nation growing up. So we need to have a new way of looking at Malaysia. That Malaysia of 57, 50s, 60s where we negotiated with the British on how to be Malaysia, that's an old history. Yeah? New rhetoric. Politicians, leaders like you and me, we need to change. We need to change the kind of language we speak, and we need to believe in that change. New education. This is very important. The education ministry is very powerful to form Malaysia as we are today. What we are today is also what we learn in our schools, what our teachers taught us, how we interacted with each other in school. If in school we played together and we had fun, and that becomes a positive experience. But if in school we are separated, they teach us about difference, you are different, you are different. When we grow up, we continue the separation, we continue the segmentation. Even universities, students are put in different dormitories based on your race, religion. When you go to the working world, you would continue that. The education ministry has a very big role in playing. We need to reclaim Malaysian identity as one nation. We need to have the courage to speak up. I mean, speak up mean like this. We need to say our experiences and denounce racists amongst us. Like the three people acting just now, they say, oh, he's my good friend, so I cannot say anything. So he says whatever, I leave it be. He has hurt my feelings, but what to do? We are good friends. So everybody is good friend, but they do not unearth and open up the painful history. We also need skills to be mutually respectful. I mean, one is speaking up, but one also to appreciate that people are different. They have different ways of living, different ways of talking. Rejection of racist ideologies. How many of us immediately write in our blog, Twitter, when somebody says something terrible? Never mind minister, or even one of us here, your friend. Do you tweet it and say, this is wrong, say no to racism, you know? Appreciating diversity, actually appreciating diversity, not just the tourism brochures, but actual living. Capturing the multi-histories. History is now a big contentious issue in Malaysia because so many versions. They're challenging history. I think there's a committee set up to look into history book. So I think we need to appreciate the different boats that came to Malaysia, the different struggles that contribute to independence, and not just give one version of history that is majority-centered. And this is not Malaysian problem. Every country struggles to this because history books are normally wrote by the lenses of the majority or those in power, and we need to change that. Build on good practice models. I think the next 2 days we are hoping that there will be more people sharing what has worked what initiative, many ministries, government departments here, I hope that you'll be able to also share what are in the pipeline, what is working, what are good things that are happening that we have not heard about. But I think I want to end with this slide because in the beginning, Tan Sri rightfully said it's the government's role. It's within the ambit of human rights. Human rights is government obligation. You and I have chosen the government of the day, and they have duties to us. What can and should the government do? Number one, denounce racist ideology. Government can never keep quiet and should never keep silent, should never give mixed messages. Somebody has said something wrong, doesn't matter who said it, say no. We distance ourselves. Doesn't matter whether it is a NGO or a political party, they need to denounce. Then we know the message. But if they keep silent, we are confused. Are they supporting or not supporting? Education, educate the masses to fight racism. So what is our education in school? Is there a topic on human rights education, which is a bigger issue? So I put the last point, institute human rights education to re-inculcate values on non-discrimination and equality. I think SUHAKAM has been pushing in the last 10 years to get human rights education into the education syllabus, but not very successful yet. I think it should be. In the Philippines, many countries, they already have human rights education as a topic from Standard 1. So children already appreciate what is respect, what is mutually allowed, what is not, you know. Promote natural communities to coexist. This is part of our history, segmented. This is a Malay area, Chinese area, Indian area. I mean, how can that happen in Malaysia? These are areas, these are places where people can buy houses or buy area. But because it's zoned, because the land titling is zoned and you have got areas now, you can think, I want to go to Kampong Baru, oh, that's the Malay area, surely got Malay food, good Malay food. Or let's go to Old Klang Road, Chinese. So we need to start developing natural communities to exist. Criminalize hate speech on race and religion, which means government and the police need to do their work on those who are promoting this kind of hate speech. But we don't have a law really that handles hate speech in a proper way. Education system that promotes critical thinking. We have a system that does not encourage people to be critical of the system. Political parties must be rejected if they promote ethnocentric ideologies. Have we taken the political parties standing up for elections, the coming elections, and tell them that, are you supporting this or not? Very simple, yes or no. Are you base your whole policy based on race division or Malaysian identity? Ask them direct questions. Professionalize civil service to be Malaysian-centric and ethnocentric. This is a very important point, because the civil service is supposed to be a civil service for all Malaysians. Although the history of civil service now is 90% Malays. But doesn't matter, your employment, that where you are now, the reason you are there is to serve all Malaysians. And so, need to differentiate who you are as well as what you are called to do as a Malaysian civil service. I think this is very important for all civil service. The same would be said about the private sector. I think this would probably be my last point, encourage critical discourse in public spaces. And I suppose this is why we are here at this conference, trying to open up spaces so that we are comfortable to share ideas, to disagree, agree, and listen to each other and pick up threads that normally don't get carried in the Malaysian newspaper because our papers are not free. Hopefully one day it will be free, with the promise by Prime Minister to restrict the, to reform the restrictions on the Media Act. So with that, I think the time is now for change, and I think we are all here together on that journey. Thank you very much.